Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So today we are back again with another AQ video, and actually I'm uploading this one because largely for section 2 and section 3 I will end up using Silver Surfer and a tiny bit of Hyperion here and there. And base idea was quite simple. I just wanted to check out how well he will do because I brought him in like once or twice at the beginning, and then I just kind of like made him sit out largely because I realistically for most part have kind of better options, but I still wanted to give him another chance and take a look at him again. Now for section 1, just as a kind of safety net, I do want to ramp up my Corvus, and that is exactly what I'm trying to do here. Now, because of the Footloose node, you can always try and get the evade mission after they throw a special attack, and I was successful here because he did in fact evade a second part of my level 1. It's always safest to try and do it with your level 1, and now I just kind of how to try and knock him down. Now, the node that is a global node today, the AQ modifier, is the Hurt Locker, I think. Is it Hurt Locker or special? Yes, it's Hurt Locker. So basically I can't throw two special attacks two of the same special attacks in a row, but that wasn't an issue. So now, even without suicides, the rank 3 Corvus on day 3 did finish the first fight with no charges for most of it, just fine. And after that, obviously I did get the away charge, and I also got the Avenger charge because Black Panther Civil War is an Avenger, and Corvus is a fantastic option to fight that Black Panther Civil War because you can parry him freely, and that's typically one of the bigger issues in that fight because it also has armor node. And now against Red Skull, obviously that is a walk in the park for Corvus. Just parry, drop a couple of combos, 13 hits, and the fight is done. So it was super simple, very easy fight. And now I'm moving on, but I'm willing to leave that Wolverine for another member of my alliance who wants to ramp up his Corvus. And by fighting that Footloose Wolverine and Hulkbuster, he is able to get all 4 missions if he plays well within the 2 fights. So that's like super useful because obviously Hulkbuster is an Avenger and he's also a tech champion. Wolverine is a mutant, and both of them have Footloose, so both of them can evade, and it's a very kind of efficient way to ramp up your Corvus. Now, a slightly bit later, I checked that this Magneto is unlinked, and I wanted to jump in on the opportunity and gain my mutant charge, which would finish ramping up my Corvus as well. And this guy basically has all or nothing node on, so it's kind of relatively easy, to be honest, with Corvus, because I don't have to worry about Magneto throwing special attacks, and I can just focus on doing whatever I need to do. So long as I can get to my level 2 before he gets to his level 3, I'm perfectly fine because obviously level 2 power drains, and even though Magneto has that damage reduction, I'm still kind of like well within comfort zone to finish the fight off. Now, I did mess up there, unfortunately, but truth be told, I don't use Corvus like at all for the remainder of the war, and there I'm just kind of like using my spare energy. I did not want to tackle that Iceman linked or not linked either way because I want to leave mutants up in case anybody else brings Corvus. But now we're in section 2. In section 2 I am up against a Freezerburn lane, and that is kind of one of the nodes that Silver Surfer is supposed to shine against, and he does quite well there. So against the Moon Knight, just like against any other champion, I basically start with parry heavy to get the power gain buff. Now the mission is to get to level 1 whilst my Fury buff is active and drop my level 1 then. And at this point, basically, he's kind of like how his damage ramped up already. And now I just need to kind of make sure that I don't activate the same special attack twice in a row. Obviously, when I get Incinerate or Cold Snap debuffs on me, that's actually beneficial because they count as additional buffs for rest of the Silver Surfer abilities, as well as I get some willpower heal because he takes no damage from these debuffs. So that is the reason why he's quite useful here. So now at this point here, 50 seconds in the fight, I'm just baiting out at level 1, and I can kind of just go for the finish here. Didn't even need to drop that level 2. Next fight is going to be Heimdall, and Heimdall is quite a bit trickier actually than the Moon Knight is because of his strike back node, and we obviously know that we do not want to push Heimdall to level 2s because they are unblockable and they can't be evaded and all that other annoying stuff. But so long as I pay very close attention to the power bar and make sure that my special attacks do not push him past like the first bar of power, I can work around that safe guard node as well. So this point here you can see that even though he gained a full bar of power, he still doesn't have enough for 2 bars, and that is kind of like the critical way I want to do this fight. I do not want to let him get to level 2. But at the same point, I do have my 2 Fury buffs active now. I have my power gain buff active. I drop a heavy hitting empty air just to activate my armor buff. And that kind of like obviously helps my damage output and all the other good stuff. And at this point, the fight's pretty much well under control. I have a bunch of debuffs on me as well. So willpower's healing me and everything is just fine and dandy. I finish a combo there. I probably could have just dropped to level 1 and the fight would be over. So I kind of like overcomplicated the situation, but it's all well. And yeah, we're done here. It's worth noting also that Cosmic Champions do not get an attack boost or attack penalty in this AQ series. I think it's Science class advantage, so basically Science Champions gain 40% attack, Skill Champions gain 20% attack, and Mystic Champions gain 40% penalty, which is kind of annoying because I wanted to bring in some... have some fun with long shot along the way or something, but either way. So now I'm up against Yondu. Yondu was unblockable initially at the beginning of the fight. It is a quite tricky thing to remember sometimes because they still, even like a year out now that map 7 has been out, and he pretty much always has had those nodes. I still sometimes get caught if I do AQ sleepy or just don't really focus on what I'm doing, so that unblockable start nodes, they might not have like a long-lasting impact in the fight because they expire very quickly, but they do catch me sometimes. All that being said, here we can see that I do have a buff of each active, so I'm dealing some decent amount of damage now. Obviously, Incinerate's healing me, and I just want to kind of make sure that, again, I don't push this guy to level 2. I can evade that level 2 semi-reliably, but it's still not something I'd prefer to risk. And after a swift level 2 Silver Surfer, the fight is over. So he did fantastic on the Freezerburn lane, but that is not the only lane that I will end up using him. And now, again, I move, but Omega Red Mini-Boss was linked when I checked. I wanted to try him out with Hyperion, but yeah, anyways, next time I checked AQ, it was already done and dusted, and I can move to my section 3, and that is Massacre over there. So Massacre is a bit of an annoying opponent because he covers a lot of distance very quickly. Obviously, whenever you run suicides, your parries might fail. He hits hard in a block, so it's definitely not the easiest opponent to deal with. But all in all, realistically, he's not also that difficult. Now, my section 3 lane is buffed up, so I deal no damage to that guy up until a point when I get to 3 buffs active on myself. So Silver Surfer is very good for this node because he gains his buffs very quickly and very early in the fight, and then maintains them throughout without having too much of a difficulty. So at this point, I just wanted to be careful, make sure I refresh my buffs that they do not expire or drop off. At this point, I'm going for a level 2, and that should be all that is to this fight. So when it comes to AQ map 7, Silver Surfer can do just fine. Now, there might obviously always be some better options, but for me, it kind of just works out, especially this week, because Section 3 is buffed up and Silver Surfer can do really well there. And Section 2 is Freezerburn. He's fantastic for all of that stuff. And even if I wanted to use Silver Surfer in Section 1, I could have, because he has a lot of armor break, so he could have dealt with that Black Panther relatively well, especially if I would get more comfortable with using that heavy attack as kind of like a phase for an in, I guess. And yeah, also Red Skull would have been quite an easy task for Silver Surfer. So maybe one day I'll try use Silver Surfer for all of that stuff as well. But this Daredevil is actually one of the trickier fights for my Section 3 because he has Rage node. And Rage is annoying if you have to keep your kind of like buffs up. So it's not necessarily the easiest fight. You need to kind of like know what you're doing now. Here I made a mistake. I dropped level 1. He probably could have punished me very hard, but I'm lucky he didn't. And at this point, I'm already at a level 2. And now I'm just trying to get my buffs up. I'm happy that Hyperion has that stun on his level 2, or a chance to stun. So that is my only reasonable, safe way how I can get in my heavy attacks and get my buffs going. And now we're up against Iron Fist. Now, Iron Fist is, again, relatively simple opponent, but I will make a very silly mistake up against this guy. and not because of the unblockable. I think I'm just going to misplay at some point. So again, I started the fight with my power gain buff, so that works out pretty much perfectly. Now at this point, I'm just waiting for my Furies to come around so I can activate my level 1, gain double Fury, and at this point the fight's perfectly fine, but I somehow end up eating a combo to my face, unfortunately. I have been having, it's probably an issue of me, but recently I have been noticed that I have a tendency to drop my block, so I just need to focus a bit more, I guess. But yeah, at this point obviously we are well within the control of the fight. I'm going for my level 2 that deals a whole bunch of damage despite the class disadvantage. I just dropped my level 1 because I knew that's going to be unblockable because of the level 2 buff that we get, and the fight is over. That's kind of a very interesting thing you can do in power reserve nodes. You can go straight to level 1 after your level 2 and enjoy the full benefit of your level 1 being unblockable as well. And now I had to wait a bit for my Loki to get unlinked, and as soon as he did, I'm gonna jump in there. This time I'm gonna bring in Hyperion because he's perfectly healthy, and I figured the fight should be easy, quick and simple, and it will be for the most part, especially with power reserve. There's not much to worry. The only kind of like tricky thing is that you want to spam your special attacks very early because you do not want that power reserve to give you too much power, because if you use like level 2 and then you, because of power reserve, basically immediately end up at another level 2, you're going to be forced to go for a level 3, and there's also a chance you can get stuck on like a level 3 and get your 3 bars of power very quickly. But all in all, it's still a very easy fight. Realistically, there's not too much to worry about. It's just like that AQ modifier that can throw you off your game a bit, I guess. And yeah, here we're finishing it off with a nice level 3, and the fight is over. And I will actually also end up going to do the fight against that Groot, and I did it on purpose whilst he still had attack penalties, so all of the numbers that you can see in this fight against Groot will effectively be halved, because all champions outside of tech class have their damage reduced by 50%. So that will make this fight quite a bit longer, but actually Silver Surfer is going to do quite well here. So obviously I will still have to alternate in between my level 1 and level 2. Groot does shrug off debuffs quicker, so my armor breaks will expire extremely fast, and I do need to be conscious that also my parry stunts are going to expire quicker, and obviously because of these armor breaks expiring quicker, I do lose a portion of my damage. But with all of that stuff, we're still not gonna take too long. I think this fight will barely last over 3 minutes. So all in all, I wasn't like too upset with Silver Surfer's performance and IQ. And if possible, I might kind of like use him for IQ quite a bit more. Obviously, AQ map 7 is different each week, so you do need to check the nodes and stuff like that. But whenever this variation in particular will come up, I think that Silver Surfer will kind of permanently end up being on my AQ team, partially because of the fact that I realistically don't think I'm gonna need or would rely on him too much anywhere else, and that would kind of free up the champions that I would want to use in like my streams and Act 6 and stuff like that. Or, well, quite simply, yeah, it lets me keep an easier mind to champions that I will need for a W attack phase, so on and so forth, so there's like no overlap, and I guess it's like one of the luxuries of a well-developed roster. But yeah, he's also quite fun. His playstyle is definitely enjoyable. You do need to pay quite a bit of attention though, because it's not the most straightforward thing to do. So in this case here, I'm going for level 3. I probably should have used that level 3 quite a bit earlier in the fight, but the reason I'm going for it, obviously for any long fight, it is very beneficial to gain that additional buff Silver Surfer has for his abilities, so he does more energy damage, and obviously the aptitude buff in itself increases the fury. And with that aptitude buff active, we can notice some higher numbers, higher damage output, and that Groot is going to go down much quicker from this point forwards. So yeah, it effectively is quite obvious that I should have went for that level 3 from the very beginning of the fight. So now we can see that even with that damage halved, he's level 2 still packs a decent punch. And all in all, he has done quite many fights and performed quite well. Now, I do need to warn that in this fight, I don't really get any boss action. And the reason for it was quite simple, because I was clearing and focusing on finishing my AW. When I checked back, the Doom was already nearly down, but when I entered the fight, I forgot that I had taken off Dexterity for Mojo fight. And so basically at the first level 1, I just ate the level 1, and yeah, that was all she wrote in the Doom fight. And I could only realistically use Corvus because Hyperion and Silver Surfer wouldn't do well either way. All that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit all the buttons, and hopefully I will catch you guys soon. See ya!